Hey everybody, it's been a while since I've come out with a video, but been feeling a little unmotivated lately, and that's kind of contributed to my lack of uploading. There's a couple of reasons for that, and if you stick around to the end of the videos, I can just go into more of that. But what we've got here now is the Lackey Grand Prix Finals match between me and TheGuardian, and what we're gonna do here today is we're gonna analyze the match, do some commentary, and at the end we'll talk about my deck, my thoughts about the deck, and then thoughts about the meta, and then maybe at the very end, we'll talk about doing personal life stuff, lack of videos, what's next, etc. So thanks for tuning in. I'll put timestamps in the description. But I am going to be loading up a deck I've been working on. I called it, I think the Lackey Grand Prix Finals. Like the file name for this deck, as I called it, 100 card Justin. It wasn't a deck designed specifically to be Justin, but it's definitely one where I had him in mind when building. I don't like building an entire deck just to target somebody. Like, I try to build a deck that I'd just bring to any tournament when I'm playing in the Lackey Grand Prix. Early on in my career as a Redemption player, when I played Justin a long time ago, I built a really defensive heavy deck just with Herods and like a couple nativity characters, and I played Justin with that, and he ended up winning because Justin's a really good defensive player. If you try to come at him with a lightning fast strategy, he's gonna have an answer for you. So I've been piloting a 100 card Daniel deck throughout the tournament here, this Lackey Grand Prix tournament. And the basic strategy of the deck is to try and get it to a harvest time on turn one and play it and put 14 lost souls that are really annoying for your opponent to deal with. And then abuse how powerful Daniel is and letting him choose the blocker to get your rescues. So I was trying out different colors. I started with brown, then I went to black to get the Canaanites, but I just really wasn't happy with the blocking options the Canaanites provided me. So I was like, I'm just experimenting right now. And I've always loved Herods. If you've watched my channel for any amount of time, you know last year I'd play Herods all the time. And I think Herods could work in 100 card lists, but I was noticing some weaknesses with my deck. And so I kind of built a new version of the deck to try and address some of those weaknesses, taking inspiration from Chad France and the work he's done at Soul Surfer. If I had to describe what this deck is, it's a 100 card version of his Soul Surfer deck, which tries to put out a lot of cards that are restricting dominance, and pairing Herods with cards that restrict dominance really make your Herods shine on defense. Like if you have a effect, if you have like a complacent out and you're trying to block with a Herod's Temple, like that's a really good block. So let me just comment briefly on the state of the game. I was able to put a Conspiring Herodian in the opponent's territory using its star ability on turn one, and Justin's been experimenting with 100 card decks too. And so last time I played him, he was on this brown green one. So we're looking through his deck right now, and it looks like he is playing a brown green version. And so that is really going to hinder my ability to pop off at the harvest time. So most decks, they're playing some lost souls like Grumbled, Shepherds, Prosperity. Like you don't really care if you put those in play with the harvest time. But when Justin's running so many souls, look, I had to put a Forsaken and a Disoriented into play. Normally, I would try to dump all my Lost Souls into play, but against other 100 card decks, it's not really advised, because what if there's an effect that's really punishing to you? But so I think I named Harvest Time for 5, so I was able to pull out a couple Lost Souls that didn't really do anything out of his deck, but then I was forced to bite the bullet and do Disoriented and Forsaken here. But maybe there's an argument to just putting all the Lost Souls out and just knowing that I think I have more effects than him. And there's probably not a lot of Lost Souls that help him here compared to what my Lost Souls are going to do. And another thing here, an important part about this deck is being able to interact with your opponent's board. And so there's not a lot of ways to do that when you're a defensive heavy deck. You know, traditionally you have decks like Joshua who can disrupt the opponent when they're attacking. I'm not really looking to disrupt them when I'm attacking. I'm trying to do that in different ways. So you notice I have stocks in the deck. Stocks is a great way to interact with your opponent's territory class stuff and annoying heroes. And also Sheol is a way to interact with the opponent's lost souls. So anytime they do a search trigger, for example, they could do a duel trigger here. Because I have Unity on my Sheol, they do the duel, and then I get a Sheol trigger, and then I underdeck their duel. So So in scenarios where the opponent has annoying lost souls, Sheol can become a great way to shut off some of your opponent's more annoying lost souls. And also, if you have a hand in this deck that has a lot of dominance that you want to leverage on in battle, you can use Sheol to underdeck your complacent like mid-battle for a nice surprise, being able to turn those dominance on. So right here, I had the option to go for a Daniel attack, or Daniel would have chosen the Conspiring Herodians, and then I could have maybe done a Reprimand Repercussion to withdraw the Herodians and gotten 2 lost souls after that. So that was definitely an option here. I decided to go for the harvest time. I think that's just been my rule of thumb when this deck is like, oh man, when in doubt between doing something with Daniel on turn 1 or doing a harvest time on turn 1, I think it's more often correct to get like my imitate and complacent color guard online. So I decided to do that. He does get to block me with a Haman, but I do have a Herod's Temple, which funnily enough will start tossing his Haman's plot. Then I have to decide if I'm going to toss the Reprimand Repercussion or save it for a later day. So I don't know. I think his hand was protected and I tried to look at it at one point. So that was an accident. So yeah, I don't know what's in his hand, but he's running a really defensive heavy deck. So I assume he has more things to toss me down with. So I'm not going to try to contest the turn 1 because I'm really just trying to play the long game here. So that's what that turn 1 harvest time was about. We're not trying to win on turn 3. We're trying to win on turn 17. Because like on paper, the Daniel attack looked good. I could have got Daniel, chosen the guy as a blocker, got my first lost soul, withdraw him, attack, and try to do it again. Got 2 lost souls really early off the bat. But the power of this deck is really just using Imitate plus Lawless to basically draw an extra card every turn. And also my hope is that I can strand a bunch of dominance in his hand with my complacent and also make it more likely that I'll be able to get a block turn 1 or 2. We drew a Conspiring Herodians here. It's not ideal, but a cool little trick you can do with this deck is if you draw your Conspiring Herodians, you can use your Galileans Lost Soul and do like an imitate on the Galileans during your upkeep to like put it back in your deck and get a Herod's Guard or something. So yeah, so when thinking about building a big version of the Herod's deck, go with Daniel. I was really wanting to pair Daniel with being able to choose a blocker. And I started looking about different ways to do that. So black with Canaanites, that's really obvious. But when you start going to other brigades, it starts becoming a little bit less obvious. And so one of the ways you can give your opponent's characters that you can choose the blocker with is the fool genre. You can't just stuff a whole deck full of fools though, because there is a limit of 1 per territory and they're very bad and when you draw them, especially if you do multiples. So the Conspiring Herodians was a way for me to stay on theme with the Herods. And, you know, on the worst case, he can just become a blocker turn 1. But I think I'm also playing Tribute in this deck. We'll see if it comes up. But the idea is like, oh man, even if I do draw my Conspiring Herodians and they're just sitting in my territory, I'd be able to use Tribute to give them over. I can't remember the exact lists I have. I can pull it up here maybe in my Lackey Justin Daniel deck. Actually, I don't really see Concealed Riches. So maybe that's like a different version of the deck I've been working on. I was like, oh man. So the problem with Concealed Riches in your Herod's deck is that you have Color Guard and Herod's Temple, which are going to be protecting your Herod's, your gospel humans in your territory from harm. So if you try to target your Herods with a neutral ability, they're going to be protected. So Tribute doesn't really work. So if you want to play Tribute, you're going to have to splash some non-gospel characters. So it'll be a little bit awkward. Okay, so turn 1, you came in with Bartimaeus. He was able to toss down a Herod, and I wasn't able to add to battle because I didn't have Unity anymore. So he gets the first Lost Soul, which is not ideal, but I don't know if I was blocking that. I think that was my best idea of block anyways. The cool thing about Herods and 100 card decks compared to 50 card decks is if you're able to keep Herod's Temple around and start doing toss battles every battle, the opponent is going to run out of enhancements to toss down with. So for example, let's say you're fighting another 50 card deck and they use turn 1, they toss down your Herod with their Amazing Face and their other enhancement. And then they attack you again turn 2. And here's what you can do in the 100 card deck. You can play 2 copies of all the Herods. So you can just get to your other copy of the Herod Archelaus, block them again, and with the toss battle going on, chances are they're not going to be able to toss them down again. So this works with Herod Archelaus, but also just like Herod the Great or Herod Agrippa against the banding chains. So that's a one way. 100 card Herods feels a little stronger than other card Herods. Is that you can really just, if you're able to keep that Herod's Temple around, you can just be really oppressive in battle. Okay, so what am I trying to do here? I activated Concealed Riches, and then I'm trying to set up a Daniel choose the block here. I was able to grab my Daniel's Guardian from reserve. The only thing that was stopping me there from playing my Possessing Spirit was he had a Disoriented. So Disoriented was, or sorry, Distressed. I always get those Lost Souls mixed up. But Distressed was really going to prevent me from playing my Possessing Spirit. Another reason why I gravitated towards Herods is I knew it could enable some Gospel Unity for Possessing Spirit. Possessing Spirit is one of the best characters you can use to set up these kind of choose the blocker turns. And the cool thing about Possessing Spirit is I can just put it in their territory, attack with Daniel, choose it to block, and I don't have to expend any resources. I can keep my Daniel around and I can just rinse and repeat. And because I'm playing a 100 card deck, I can do this twice a game, or twice in a game. So if I'm able to choose the Rescuer with 2 Possessing Spirits, that's the 2 Lost Souls, and then Son of God's Second Coming, that's 2 more. So I have to win one normal battle, and if I'm able to get a Conspiring Herodian in there, I can choose that as a blocker too. So I have 2 Conspiring Herodians, 2 Possessing Spirits. In theory, I don't have to fight any actual battles on offense. So yeah, the reason why I switched to this version for this game was I wanted to try out a new strategy involving Gospel, Possessing Spirit, Restricting Dominance, and Herods. And I'm really trying to lean into the Restricting Dominance part. Even though I'm a deck that plays all these battle dominance, like I'm still running Murderous Command, Angel Lord, Christian Martyr, Falling Away. Definitely not as running as many battle dominance as my other versions of the deck were, but I still run them because the cards are that good. But I'm running cards like Complacent, which restricts doms during the battle phase. I'm running cards like Fall of Man, which restricts dominance while I'm rescuing or blocking. Playing card like Lacking Prophecy, which is a curse, which restricts all players with more than 4 cards in hand from playing dominance. And then I'm also playing the Cross, which restricts dominance. So I have a lot of different ways to prevent the most powerful card type in Redemption from being played. And pairing that with cards like Daniel, which are really hard to block if you don't have a dominant, and Herods, which are really hard defense to break through without dominance. And I've been enjoying the playstyle so far. It feels really restrictive. There's a lot of decisions to make of like, okay, when do I leave my cross on, and when do I turn it off? Because now, look, I have 1 card in my hand. I have a card I cannot play. Oh, he negated the cross for a phase. So I thought about playing the Chronicles to negate and discard his Unknown Nation. Unknown Nation, his curse he has active there. He can use that to add a blocker into play. So he's effectively shutting down my Daniel choose the blocker avenue. So before I attack with Daniel, I need to get rid of that somehow. It looks like I've run out of gas. And here's a nice thing I like to do in this deck. If you don't have a good attack, what you can do is you can just attack with Servants of the King, bounce a human, so you bounce your Servants of the King, draw 2 cards, and the opponent doesn't get to block and generate value off the block. So effectively, while you're stalling, basically, you get to draw 5 cards per turn while they're drawing 3 cards. And if you're kind of doing Imitate plus Lawless, you're up to drawing 6 cards a turn. And eventually you'll draw back into your Daniel, or a way to get to Daniel, or a way to put the blocker in their territory. What's crazy was I had 1 card in my hand, and the opponent wasn't able to attack into me just because of how powerful Herod's Guard plus Herod's Temple is, and the fact that he knew I could just get another Herod out of my deck. And he was all out of the good enhancements to toss him down. So, who needs cards in your hand when you're blocking? But that is one thing I've noticed about this deck. It can run out of cards really fast. Herods aren't really known for drawing cards, and I'm not especially trying to draw cards when I'm attacking. I'm not like trying to attack with Matthew turn 1. The best thing I have for card draw is the Servants of the King. If I can get to an early Servants of the King, I can get a draw engine going. Or on defense, I think I just have Outsiders, maybe some Herod Philip, but nothing crazy. So I think where this deck that I'm playing could be really have a weakness is if they're able to negate my neutrals and keep me off my toes on turn 1 with like some disruption. I think if I don't get to my card draw, I think I could really struggle here. So I got rid of his Distressed. Now I can put my Possessing Spirit down. If I'm able to get to a Daniel, that's pretty much a free rescue right there. Assuming I can play around his Sheol and Unknown Nation. So I'm still trying to draw into some more answers with Servants and just kind of biding my time, knowing that he doesn't really have good attacking options. My defense is just really solid. Sheol plus Complacent, Color Guard, Cross, Dole, Wicked, Forsaken. This defense is nasty. So I'm just biding my time here, knowing that we have an hour and 15 minutes to play the game and just trying to quickly iterate through my turn cycles in order to try and take as many turns as I can with this deck. The more turns I'm able to take with this deck, the higher my chances of victory. But it's really interesting going from a type of strategy where I'm only used to playing 3 or 4 turns to a strategy now where I'm like in turn 10 against Justin. I'm definitely enjoying this type of strategy. There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of interesting decisions to make, but it does have me worried in the back of my mind about how well I'd be able to do in a big tournament. Because I was at Nationals last year and I was playing Big Clay, and there were tournaments or there were games I wasn't able to finish. So I like how this version of the deck gives me an avenue to, in theory, win faster. Like get a couple, choose the blockers down, restrict the dominance. My battle phases are really fast. It's like, okay, Daniel attacks, choose the blocker. You don't have any dominance, nothing you can do, give me the soul. So like, hopefully that could help. All right, opponent is playing Harvest Time to get all of his annoying lost souls out there, all the ones that I'd spent so hard to underdeck. Here's a nuance here that is interesting. So Sheol says unity. While you have unity, you get to have this effect. And the definition of unity is you have to control and own all characters to satisfy the unity. So Sheol says unity evil characters. So all evil characters I own and control have to share a brigade. So I thought I had unity here, but the way Possessing Spirit set works is that you place him out of your hand into the opponent's territory, but you still control and own that character, as opposed to a character like Conspiring Herodians, which you give them. So you give control over. It's a really nuanced rule, but if you have a Possessing Spirit in your opponent's territory and you're trying to get unity for something, it's probably not going to work. All right, opponent negates my cross, is able to find a shipwreck to take out the temple. It looks like, oh, no attacks, just pass. Okay, interesting. So it looks like we're both just passing here. And here's the secret sauce of my deck. I know effects like Sheol and Unknown Nation work. I misphrased it. I know cards like Sheol exist. And if I'm trying to do a strategy with no good enhancements, just trying to rely on opponents choose the blocker, and opponent is able to add to battle something, I know my whole strategy falls apart. So I said to myself, what if I just run 2 copies of Lost Child Found in my reserve and a Bethlehem Stable in my main deck, and then before combat, I'm able to bounce their cards that could mess me up and then attack with Complacent up. So in this case, as you saw, I bounced the Sheol, I bounced the Unknown Nation, and now I'm able to go Daniel, ban to Servants, bounce Servants, draw 2, and then choose a blocker. And because I have Complacent out, the only out that they have here is a multicolored enhancement or orange enhancement. So now the game has swung so far into my favor here. I remember I was at a place where I had 1 card in my hand that I couldn't even use. But now I have 13 cards in hand, so many dominance, so much defense. We're looking really good now. We're lining up for trying to choose the Conspiring Herodians as a blocker next turn after the Possessing Spirit. So yeah, so there is a little bit of anti-synergy here, I will acknowledge. Having 2 no straws and a couple dominants in my hand while I have the cross active is not ideal, but I think we're able to work through that. Now, once I get rid of this Possessing Spirit, I'll be able to get my unity back for Sheol, which is great. Because now Sheol is because Possessing Spirit is in battle, anything in battle under opponent's command is under their control. So now I have unity. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it's just really complicated sometimes. So yeah, basically, because I chose Possessing Spirit as a blocker, I have unity again. So I'm able to underdeck something because of their search trigger. All right, I'm up to 2 lost souls now. I have to get cards out of my hand. I have so many of like the no straw abandonment effects. I could probably get rid of some of those. And I don't really want to play Conspiring Herodians out of my hand. Normally, Conspiring Herodians has an effect where I would be milling my opponent for 1 card each turn, but because I have a Distressed out, I'm negating his territory class characters. Another cool thing about the Herods and restricting dominance during battle phase is that the fact that if they attack with somebody and if you can get initiative and you have a card like Futile Inquisition or Contagious Fear, that's basically a guaranteed block. Normally, if you block with a low initiative character and your opponent is attacking with a higher initiative character, they can play Glory of the Lord, Angel of the Lord to stop you. But if you're shutting off dominance, cards like Futile Inquisition and Herodias' Daughter get a lot stronger. I think that's exactly what I'm going to be doing here, knowing that they don't really have anything to stop me here. I might go up to 2 Herodias' Daughter, even though I'm not running any Herods in the reserve. Normally, Herodias' Daughter isn't that great if you're not playing her to get a Herod from the reserve, because what you do is like you block with her, you reserve something, you exchange to your Herod in your territory, but then they can play a card that negates Herodes' Daughter, like Three Woes, and then they bring Herodes' Daughter back in, and it's usually not a good idea. But if one of the weaknesses of this deck that I'm playing is Nazareth, having main deck answers to Nazareth is a great thing to incidentally have. Let's see, how many Herodes' Daughter? I'm running 1. Also, I also chose to run 1 copy of Abusive Soldier. We might see him coming out later. On paper, he looks strictly worse than Herodes' Daughter, but he's generic. He's a 2/1, which is important in a format that might be dominated by Jeremiah. I think he's worth it as a one of if you know Jeremiah is going to be really popular. Just being able to grab initiative against Jeremiah is huge, and he's one of the only evil characters in the game that can do it. So I'm just going to do my same old trick again. I have my second copy of Lost Child Found, where bounce his things in his territory that are stopping me, and then I come in with my Daniel and just choose a blocker. The unfortunate part about Conspiring Herodians is that they are a 4/6. Now, this is a good news if you want to try and play enhancements that give you initiative, like Water from the Lord or Daniel's Prayer, but it's unfortunate in the case where you're not really running those enhancements and you'd really prefer just to keep your Daniel around. So, for example, this is Mutual Destruction, where I think in this scenario I would have preferred to have Conspiring Herodians not kill Daniel. So you could switch to other rules if I think there's a Crimson one that's like a 1/7. So I was really trying to go for the win here. Was not expecting the Lurking. So Lurking came out of nowhere and is able to ban 2 Gomer. So yeah, this is not looking good for me, especially because I'm restricting all these dominants right now. These dominants probably could have saved me, but chose to just be able to keep restricting dominance here. You live by the restrict, you die by the restrict. What was I saying before? Oh yeah, I was talking about the numbers. So I think I'm working on another version of this deck, which is kind of playing some of the fools in the Herod shell, but having some of the fools that have better numbers for Daniel. Yeah, I think I like the ambushed Moabites and the foolish Edomites, if you're looking up those cards, and kind of ditching the conspiring Herodians. Because you don't need to play an on-color fool. Like, you don't need to play conspiring Herodians in your gold deck. I mean, sure, it'll come up every now and then that you're going to get punished for playing more brigades, but you're not really trying to put your fool into play, and you're trying to diversify your fools to get the best chance of your opponent not having enhancements to play on them. So not if you know you're going up against another Herod deck, having going all in on the conspiring Herodians is not a good idea. So trying to diversify, the next iteration of this deck is trying to diversify the fools that I am playing. I still like the fools, and I think pairing up the fools plus tribute, and if I'm playing fools that aren't gospel, the idea is I can put the fool in my territory, I can activate tribute, give the fool over, and then set up for like a turn later I can attack with Daniel. That is very weak to 20 shekels, however. Okay, so what's going on? They're attacking, they have initiative, they're getting to play Haman's Plot a couple times, so they're discarding all my characters in my territory. It's very unfortunate, and this is the whole thing I'm trying to prevent with Daniel choosing a blocker, is I'm trying to prevent them from playing their enhancements, because bad things like this can happen, and Justin's deck is very good at punishing. If they get initiative, it can just do so many nasty things. And I do like Brown in 100 card builds, but I don't like how risky it is to play a bunch of evil enhancements. It's much stronger just to focus more on the strength of your characters. And the reason I like Herod so much is all of them have modifiers. The thing about Brown is not really any of them have modifiers. You attack their defense right there with Lazarus, and all of a sudden their great blocks turn into just really lame ones. So that's what I'm trying to do with this deck, as I'm trying to play a defense that has all the bases covered. And Herods does that really well, even though they're maybe don't have as many strong synergies for 100 cards like the Wandering Israelites and Ahasuerus. Another consistency piece that the Herods are great for in 100 card decks is you can play 2 copies of Herod's Treachery, which is basically a tutor for any evil card in your deck. So turn 1, you could play Herod down, play Herod's Treachery, get your Crowd's Choice, get your Harvest Time. That's like one way to do it. Just more ways to guarantee that consistency turn 1. The previous versions of the 100 card deck, or 150 card deck, that is, were running Salty. But because I'm so reliant on Lost Child Found, I think I had to cut Salty, even though I think it's still really good. But now that's opening up the territory class enhancements. Okay, like what can I play? I got Herod's Treachery, I have Clinging to Power, I have Delivered, Lost Child Found, and these are all some of the best territory class enhancements in the game. All right, here comes that Jeremiah. He's threatening. Look at all those enhancements in his reserve that he has access to. So my goal here is not to try and give Jeremiah initiative if I can. Because he searched, I do get a Dull Trigger, which is going to be very clutch, because I know he's not protecting Lost Souls, and because I'm playing Herod or Abusive Soldiers in my deck, now I have a great block against Jeremiah. So here comes Abusive Soldiers. His hand's protected, so I won't be able to get to do the first part of his ability. But the reason I'm playing this card is because he's a 2/1, and Jeremiah is a 1/11. So if Abusive Soldiers blocks Jeremiah, it's going to be my initiative, and now I can just play Contagious Fear, reserve my guy, and there's nothing he can do. So really strong, really strong. A weakness that I could see of this deck is an opponent playing a 100 card deck with orphans in it, because I really want to be able to manipulate their Lost Souls, and if they have an orphans, I won't be able to do Sheol to underdeck their stuff. I'll have to just rely on my Son of God or my Resurrection Revealers to try and stop their neutral cards. So I am playing 2 copies of Resurrection Revealer in the deck. It's not a great chance I'll get to get them both online, but the upside is so high, and the fact that I just want to go turn 1 Harvest Time anyways, and they're really good at enabling that. I also wanted to play Resurrection, not for the traditionally busted things that it can do, but more so for the fact that it puts a fortress, Gospel Fortress, or New Testament Fortress into play. And so tell me how this sounds. Opponent attacks you, they blew up your temple, right? And then mid-combat, you go Herod's Temple, or sorry, you go Resurrection, get Herod's Temple back from your discard pile or from play, and put it into play, and then you block with your Herod. So in my mind, I'm kind of thinking Resurrection as like a, imagine this. You had a defensive dominant that said, search your deck. Okay, never mind. Here's what it'd say: toss all enhancements played this battle. And that's a defensive enhancement. Would you play that card in Herods? I think you would, right? Anyways, I'm just thinking outside the box here. And so yeah, I am running Resurrection in a deck with just, I think, 3 New Testament characters. I'm playing 2 Herod's Temples, 1 Beth Stable, and Resurrection is another way to get to my most important fortresses, which is Beth Stable and Herod's Temple. Because Herods without Herod's Temple, they are definitely not as good. Not as good at all. All right, the opponent's defenses are back up. They have the Trusted Politicians, they have the Sheol, they have the Unknown Nation. So if I want to try and sneak through with a Daniel attack again, I'm gonna have to deal with basically all that. I'm up to 3 Lost Souls. I think I just played Son of God last turn. Crowd's Choice, which could go get Second Coming. So I just need to rescue 1 more here. Here comes Deborah, and we're just gonna block with somebody I know who can get initiative and play enhancement. Herod Antipas is really good at playing getting initiative, playing enhancements that don't require initiative. So let's say they got a Lost Soul in turn 1. Let's see, and they played Son of God, or have they broken through for real? I want to say that maybe the only turn that they broke through was turn 1, and they haven't been able to break through ever since. And that's kind of the theme. That's the plan with this deck. You're definitely at your weakest turn 1, but as the game goes on, your blocks just get better and better, and your opponent's attacks, in theory, should get worse and worse. But Justin's really been biding his time, only attacking when he knows he has a great shot of breaking through. Okay, so what I did here is I'm trying to go for the kill. I played Chronicles to take out Unknown Nation. I played Woes to negate the Sheol. Now I have a way to get to Daniel, and I know his Trusted Politicians I had a distressed out. But now I'm just trying to set up a choose the blocker kill here. So I'm choosing Conspired Herodians to block with Daniel. And he doesn't have another lurking. I know, because you could only play one of those in your 100 card deck. And we're going for the kill. Oh yeah. All right. I think he's out of enhancements. Dominance are restricted during the battle phase because of complacent. And it's interesting that he hasn't chosen to underdeck complacent with his Sheol yet. It is maybe a choice he should have been making. But I think we talk about it in the chat after the game. He definitely is like, oh, next time I'm going to be underdecking complacent. But complacent has definitely done so much work on offense and defense here. With my other versions of the Daniel deck, I noticed I was able to choose the blocker, but they were able to use their defensive dominance to mess him up still. So I was just trying to figure out, okay, what's a way I can minimize the chance that opponent's going to be able to block a Daniel here. So I think restricting dominance is definitely the way to go. So I'm able to finish off the game, get to 5 lost souls by playing Crouch Choice, searching for Second Coming to get Son of God back from my discard pile to rescue your lost soul. So there's the game. Finish it off 5-2. Blackheath Grand Prix Finals. And oops, that's the next version of the deck we'll be talking about. But let's look at the version of the deck we used, just kind of go over anything that didn't make it into the video. You're trying to maximize the ways you can get to Daniel or Harvest Time turn 1, so having double a Great White Throne is great. Playing Concealed Riches, which is a really flexible card, allows you in the late game to grab your Lost Child Found, or even another way to Daniel, or setting up the Cross plus Golgotha to limit the opponent's options. Running Guardians of your Souls to hedge against the Clay matchup. Big Clay, or just Clay variants in general, are very strong if you're not kneecapping them with Guardian. And you can play around the fact that you have 2 Contagious Fears, one in the main deck, one in the reserve. You can play around that by running Wicked, so you block, oh, I have a Guardians up. Doesn't matter. Play your Contagious Fear, Protect and Rescue regardless of Protect. And also Herod Antipas himself has enhancements he play regardless of Protect. So you have a bunch of ways to get around your Guardian. And you're not really trying to run Battle Dominance. So you notice I'm not really playing a lot of Battle Dominance. I could be running more. But the value of cards like Mayhem or Guardian of your Souls or Shipwreck go up in a deck where you're playing a bunch of these type of effects. Let's see what else. We have the Outsiders, sneaky Outsiders, running Arc of Salvation to protect Daniel from getting killed in territory, which he does oftentimes. Because opponents can't really play their Murderous command during battle, so they have to just fire it off and kill Daniel in the territory, which is what I want them to do. I have so many ways to get him back. What else? I'm playing just a couple of good enhancements. It is nice to get initiative against Conspiring Herodians and draw 3. You're still going to lose your Daniel, but drawing 3 cards is nice. You'll draw maybe into your copy of Watchman, just get Daniel back. What else? I feel like this is, I'm hit the edge of playability. There's so few good gold cards out there that I'm basically scraping the bottom of the barrel. There aren't that many good gold enhancements. But the ones that you do have access to are really good. Revolt, Abandonment, Felicity, Contagious Fear, Futile Inquisition, No Straw, Herod's Treachery. These are all A tier. Reprimand, Repercussion. So you have just enough to make it playable. And also trying out the Merchants of the Earth to recycle some of these really powerful enhancements later on in the game when you're able to restrict dominance and get initiative. It might catch people off guard. It's like, oh man, they've played both their Futile Inquisitions. They played both Contagious Fear. What are they going to do now? You just come out with the Merchants and surprise them. So I don't know if that's good or not. So where do I go from here? So like I talked about, Conspiring Herodians, not the ideal stat line for the Daniel Choose the Blocker deck. I was like, okay, what if I could build another version of the deck that cut even? Because in theory, if I'm able to just choose the blocker so many turns in a row, I don't need to play Faith of Amram Jochebed. I don't need to play Scattered and Scorched. I don't need to play Prayer for Power. These are nice safety blankets to have, but what if you just kind of go more all in on the choose the blocker strategy? So to enable that, we have 2 copies of Tribute, 2 copies of Ambushed Moabites, 2 copies of Possessing Spirit, 2 copies of Foolish Edomites. And the idea is if you draw your copy of Foolish Edomites and you don't use a star ability, let's say you like draw it outside of your draw 3, what you can do is you can use Tribute to give them away and hedge against the fact that you might end up drawing him anyways. If you don't have a Fool, you can just choose to give the opponent one of your Herods to block, assuming the Herod's not protected. Or, so for example, you could just give him an Outsiders, or I don't know. Tribute, it is awkward because you can't choose the blocker with them the turn you give it to him. You have to wait a turn, so it does give the opponent time to disrupt that. But if we're playing a lot of dominant restriction, it's less likely the opponent can disrupt it. But a card that's going to be really good against my deck is a Great White Throne. So if I try to spend all this time setting up a big tribute play, and they play Great White Throne, I'm kind of down a lot of money, so to say. So I don't know how good this version of the deck is compared to the other version of the deck. I'll definitely be continuing to test this out in the Lackey Grand Prix. So we have another one starting up, I think, this week. But I haven't really felt motivated to go online and ask for casual games. And that's a good segue just to talk about motivation in general. So there's a couple factors at play. Number one, I'm just not really feeling a lot of motivation in life right now to do redemption. I think part of that has to do with the fact that I uninstalled Discord from my phone because I was just terminally online. And I just wanted to have healthier boundaries with my phone. So I uninstalled Discord. So the only time I can check Discord is after work. And so I'm a little bit more disengaged with the community, and that makes me less motivated to make videos. I think another factor is just other content creators aren't really putting out stuff. So like the Threshing 4 has kind of gone radio silent. Tyler's hasn't been uploading. And there's this like really unique effect where if you have a bunch of people talking about redemption, you're more excited to do it. So that's like maybe another aspect of it. And then the third aspect is a video game called Silksong came out. I've just been spending a lot of my free time playing that video game. So I only have a limited amount of free time and I have to spend it on something. And if I'm not doing redemption videos, I'm doing something else. So that has been, so I'm almost to the end of that video game. And I think once I beat that video game, I'll be able to do more redemption content, which is a funny reason to not continue doing your YouTube stuff, but it's the truth. All right, so if you've made it this far, thanks for watching. Hope you're learning something. Hope you're inspired to build your own decks, no matter how weird the idea is. But signing off for now.